Hello, everyone. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Welcome to Fridays with Sandy. That's Sandy Kreisberg in Boston, HBSGuru.com founder. And we have a terrific candidate in Cooper who has, sit down before you hear this, a 770 Gmat. I bow in honor of that. A 3.67 GPA in economics and environmental science from Northwestern University. He works for a climate finance nonprofit where he is an analyst. It's not a very well-known firm, but it's in a very hot area in climate change. And Cooper is very passionately devoted to that area. He is applying to Stanford, Wharton, Booth, Stern, Haas, UCLA, and Columbia. I guess he's not taking any chances, even with a 770 GMAT. And here is something else. He pitched his team at Northwestern into its first Big Ten tournament in 33 years, striking out 9 in 6 2/3 inning on 3 days rest. Wow. That's more impressive to me than that GMAT.
Yeah, hi, Cooper. Could you just take us through your resume beginning in graduating Northwestern in 2017?
Yeah, absolutely. I graduated Northwestern the spring of 2017 with a degree in economics, environmental sciences. I also minored in transportation and logistics, which was a pretty long-held interest of mine. Moved on to work in renewables and energy consulting at ICF, which is a subject area consulting firm in the Washington, D.C. area.
Does that firm send people to business school? Do people apply to business school from there?
Not particularly that I know of. It tends to be MS programs or PhDs, or they just do some kind of online certificate for a promotion.
Good. Okay. And then where'd you go? To your current job as well?
Right. And then after 2 years, I decided I wanted to try to make more of a broad impact on climate issues. So I took a job at Climate Policy Initiative out here in San Francisco. What Climate Policy Initiative does is it works with policymakers and private finance institutions to drive green finance at scale into developing markets.
Okay, say that again. So it's a think tank focused on what?
Yeah, it's a think tank focused. Yeah. So it's a think tank focused on advising financial institutions as they develop their green investment strategies, and then also working with national governments to grow that green investment over time.
That sounds great, but I haven't had firsthand experience with that. Give me an example. Who's a financial institution you would advise?
Sure. So currently we're working with the Rockefeller Foundation to develop Green Street Africa, which is a financial instrument brought to us by a New York City-based asset management firm. And what they're trying to do... Okay,
let's stop right there. Let's get all the players. We've got the New York-based asset management firm. We've got the Rockefeller Brothers do-gooder organization, and we've got you guys, right?
Yeah.
How did the asset management firm, what was their motivation?
Sure. They're basically trying to make money by going into developing countries and developing renewable energy projects, but they need some sort of grant funding to start it up. It is a pretty social impact oriented project, and there's a lot of uncertainty in these types of projects, especially developed in places like Nigeria, like Southeast Asia.
Okay, and then how does the Climate Policy Initiative get in the picture? I assume you're in the middle of a network of players that does this all the time, including banks and do-gooder organizations.
Right, so I should probably zoom out and give a description of what the Climate Finance Lab is. Climate Policy Initiative acts as the secretariat of the lab, which means we supervise the application and development process for all of these innovative financial instrument ideas that come to us. We select 6 to 8 a year, and then with the support of our lab members, which include big financial institutions like B of A, as well as NGOs and foundations like the Rockefeller Foundation, we develop those financial instruments so that they're investment ready, and then they can go out and scale.
Okay, that's a little arcane. You really have to get that story down to bullets and, keep it keep it simple. You know that one, right?
Sure.
John, what does KISS mean in this context?
KISS, keep it simple, stupid.
Stupid. Right. I don't know who the stupid is. I think it's keep it simple. The person you're talking to, keep it simple, assume the person you're talking to is stupid. Okay. Cooper, in this case, given that what you do is not well known and a little arcane,
Yeah.
you really need to work that up in a way. Very often the people interviewing you at schools, don't have a it'll be news to them.
Sure.
So that's advice number one. And I take it not many people from the Climate Policy Initiative apply to business school. Is that right?
Not a ton of people apply to business school. Part of that is because we actually tend to hire some MBAs. And so it tends to be more of a move from people who have spent earlier parts of their career in the private sector and now want to do nonprofit work.
Well, that sounds like you, doesn't it?
No, so the reason that I'm trying to make
but you want to go to business school, and then okay, let's do it this way. What job do you want in 15 years?
I want to be an impact fund manager, probably in the private equity space. And so the way that's different from what I'm currently doing is it's more commercial. Like, having worked in the nonprofit space, I've seen there's only so much you can do when you talk policy. Like, you need to be involved in these deals to really be shaping the way that markets are going to go in the future.
Good. And how do you name someone whose job you want?
Sure. Jay Coe is a really cool guy. He works at the Lightsmith Group in New York City. They do finance for climate adaptation projects, stuff like building seawalls in affected areas and then monetizing the benefits of that. So he's somebody that I really look up to. I think the entire BlackRock executive suite at this point has been really pioneering in pushing for sustainable investment and basically making that part of the investor value proposition. So those are two that really stand out to me.
Good. Okay, those are good. Those are great answers. Most people are incapable of answering that. Tell us what Green Street Africa is. That sounds like something that would get the attention of an AdCom.
Yeah, absolutely. Green Street Africa is an innovative financial instrument that we're developing through my employer's climate finance incubator. And what it's trying to do is aggregate small projects that aren't necessarily financeable on their own into much bigger project portfolios that are then able to be financed by a local currency bond in Nigeria.
I get most of that a little bit. Where you're totally lost me was the bond in Nigeria. How's that going to work?
Yeah, absolutely. So in order to justify a bond issuance that's backed by guarantee, which is pretty necessary in markets like Nigeria, where the foreign exchange rate is pretty volatile, markets in general are pretty volatile, you have to be able to get a certain ticket size on your investment. And so a lot of these small renewable energy projects only cost $2, $3, $4 million. By aggregating 6 or 8 of them into a project and developing them all at once, we can get a large enough investment that it makes sense to institutional investors.
Okay, that's valuable. You're man, you got a lot going for you. First of all, what you're doing is music to the ears of elite business schools. They love everything about it. They love using finance to do good. They love working in underserved markets like Africa. They love using complicated finance to do good, rolling up Nigerian bonds into an instrument that'll have more credibility. They'll flip for that.
And they'll like the 770.
Yeah, and you got a 367 and a 770. So you got a lot to offer. You just have to do no harm. And you also have to get your resume more clear. And in an actual interview at Harvard or Stanford or Wharton, you got to be able to explain what you're doing with real clarity and bullet points. It's something I'm sure you can do. You're just used to talking to people in your own tribe.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
initially among your schools, you had omitted Harvard Business School because you didn't view it. Why did you omit Harvard in your wish list?
Yeah, sure. The primary reason is I've been talking to a lot of people who've gone to these programs who talk a lot about fit, and so I think especially for me, I don't think the intense focus on the case method is necessarily best aligned with the way that I tend to learn. The other thing is just having talked to folks in the impact investing and green finance space. It's been my impression to this point that Stanford and Wharton have much stronger networks in those specific areas.
I'll take their word for it about Stanford and Wharton, but John, if this guy got into Wharton and HBS, what would you advise him?
Definitely HBS. I mean, it's just, the word is kind of magic. No matter what you do, no matter where you go. If you want a job at BlackRock, either school is going to get you there, but a Harvard MBA
it's all brand. But the experience at the schools is baloney. That's my take on it.
Well, also, there are people who think that the case study is not for them. That's true. But, those I will say this about people who generally think case study is not for them. They tend to think that they're a little more introverted and they feel like they don't want that much pressure to be participating in class. And my argument there would be you need that then, because you want to be comfortable getting up, being proactive in every discussion in your work world. And getting that practice at Harvard is really great.
Have you witnessed a case study class, Cooper?
No, I haven't. I mean, the closest I've gotten to that is my involvement in undergrad consulting club. And so we would do
There's no comparison. Anyway, just it's hard to do now with the virus, et cetera, et cetera. But just my advice to anyone is if you get into Harvard, go unless you want to go to Stanford. I'm a big believer in brand. There's also another advantage of Harvard is there's so many people. You're going to meet interesting people, which is
the network is massive.
Yeah, the network.
Because you're graduating 940 people a year, and it's just so much bigger.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So end of sermon. Let's get to the handicapping here. 367 770. I'm impressed. That'll get you into all of your choices, my guess, with the possibility of Harvard and Stanford. At Harvard, you could blow the interview. I expect you to get interviewed at Harvard with serviceable execution, but then people just blow the interview.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing at Stanford, although Stanford's just harder, but Stanford really goes for the 770. Don't you think, John?
Oh, yeah. Look, they're going to go not only for that, they're going to go for what you're doing.
And what you're doing is so up their alley.
Feel about this. The fact that you got a highly selective job and that paid less and you deliberately did that. They're even going to go for your baseball career. They really are, because that's a big deal. It requires incredible discipline to do what you did at Northwestern.
Agree with all of that.
They really will.
So the real burden for you is you're not working for well-known companies or companies that send people to these schools. So you've got to explain these companies very clearly, both what they do, the selectivity, and projects that you've done. That's my only advice, and I think you can do it now that John and I have shook you up here.
Okay, Sandy, here's a good question for you. So Cooper has on his target list 7 different schools, and we're telling him he should also apply to Harvard. That would be 8. Yeah. I think he shouldn't apply to that many schools. I think he should devote more time to Stanford, Wharton, Harvard, and let's take 1 or 2 others that he wants.
What would be your choice after Harvard, Stanford, and Wharton? What would be your first choice?
That's a good question. I mean, probably Booth.
Okay, and they have a lot of scholarship money.
Yeah.
Because here's why I say that. I don't want your attention diverted in a way that takes any energy or any of your mind away from the schools you target. I think you disperse your opportunity to do the best application by spreading it over 8. That's my personal view. Sandy, would you agree? Because your stats and everything else are so good, you don't need to worry about, oh, if I don't.
I don't think he needs 8 schools. I think he needs a safe school, and
Chicago
Burns the safe school. Right?
Yeah,
hey, the 770.
Yeah. They take a lot of people. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And they'd love taking you away from Northwestern, incidentally.
Yeah, also you're young, so worst case, calamity outcome. You don't get into any of them. Apply the year after that and pick another safe school.
Yeah, I mean, part of this timing is I have some scholarship money on the table from a scholarship that I won in undergrad to apply to grad school, and I have to apply it by this spring. I have to show admission by this spring. Now, that's not to say I'm rushing into this, because I really do feel that where I am in my current work.
We talking about a lot of money?
Not a lot. Not a lot.
I wouldn't let that. Is the money to help you actually pay the application fees, or is it a grant?
No, it's a grant to put towards tuition.
All right. Well, look.
Frankly, I know that money is an issue for you, given the fact that you chose, so far a career that doesn't pay a lot of money.
It's chicken feed, man. Go into debt. It'll mean nothing in 5 years.
It is true. What Sandy is saying is true, even though it may be hard to take. But I might put Booth and Kellogg in the mix because they're high scholarship schools, with Wharton, Stanford, and Harvard.
I'm a little
scholarship from both Chicago Booth and Kellogg, and then you might have a difficult decision over whether or not to go to let's say, I think you're going to get into 2 of the big 3. That's my guess. So you're getting in, man. There's no doubt about it, and you're going to get into a bunch of these. So good luck to you, and let us know how it all turns out. Thanks for watching Fridays with Sandy.